Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with the Green Scorpion. Tonight, well, Weapons Month. We're actually taking a little break because we got the top 10 video game cyborgs. So, yeah. These are basically half human, half machine. So, not sure how much it has to be like human. Like, it could be like Cyborg where it's like a little bit, or RoboCop, but again, if there's some human elements and some cyborg parts, you're good to go. At least that's how I believe, but well, let's hop in and see who qualifies as cyborg and see what's top in the list. I'll be real, don't know this one, so be sure to like Scott for more. Hope you enjoy. I'll be surprised to you. Let's go! Here we go. Here we go. Let's begin. Hey, Kano.
Greetings, my beautiful bioorganic brethren, the Green Scorpion here, with another long-requested countdown. I've seen this one in various comment sections for years now, and paid it no mind, but with a request from my supportive patrons Bahamut Omega and Eric Bergevald, I decided it's finally time to dust this one off. Cyborgs. Part biological, part artificial, all awesome.
That's a thing?
I'm honestly not sure why I was so lukewarm on this topic for so long. Maybe because it was so much like robots and I wanted to do that one first. But as long as we've had robot characters in our fiction, we've had characters that were only part robot. But while they are similar, there is enough distinction. Cyborg storylines can ask all the same questions about humanity, utility, social justice, and determinism, just from the perspective of someone only partway through that journey. Darth Vader, who's more machine than man now, the Borg, where computers have eaten up an entire race's free will, and of course, Victor Stone, the cyborg from DC Comics who injected a healthy amount of booyah into many a child.
Booyah!
Though the term cybernetic organism was coined in 1960, the idea of technology implementing itself into human experience is much older. And even outside of media, this kind of technology continues to grow in the real world. If you have a prosthetic limb, a pacemaker, heck, if you just wear glasses or contacts, you're in a sense a cyborg. And most of us are basically attached to our phones nowadays. It's not hard to imagine a world where we produce tools straight out of our wrists. It's the next logical step, really. As usual,
it'd be kind of cool, but depends how you play it.
Which is where this got surprisingly complicated. The definition is simple. You have to be a partly organic creature that is in some way physically enhanced by technology. But it's surprising what characters did and didn't fit into this criteria. Like, Master Chief is technically a cyborg. He's cybernetically enhanced so that he can interface with the Spartan armor, though since it's usually the armor itself and the biological enhancements we think about, he didn't make a very interesting case study for this particular list in my opinion. I thought I'd be clever and add Android 21 from Dragon Ball FighterZ. She did premiere in a video game after all, but here I was thinking she was more like Android 17 and 18, who are actually cyborgs, not androids. But then 21 turns out to be more of a weird cloning concoction. What exactly does Android mean to you,
Majin, I guess.
Then there are the demigods from Asura's Wrath. Yeah, they look like they have robot limbs, but that's just because they have the power to metallicize parts of their body.
That's out.
Weird. The biggest disappointment was Dr. Nefarious. I was so excited for this one.
He's kind of full robot,
He used to be an alien scientist, but using exact descriptions from the Ratchet and Clank games, he is now fully robot. So, yeah, this is harder than I thought, but time and technology march ever forward, and we can't be falling behind the wheel of progress. So oil up those joints and recalibrate your sensors, because this is the top 10 video game cyborgs.
To find out. First up, number 10.
I really didn't want to put Genji on this list. And it's not just because of Blizzard's surprising entrance onto the stage of global politics. Wow, everything about that situation makes me sad. But hey, I acknowledge the controversy. Does that mean I can talk about Overwatch now? No. The reason I didn't want to talk about Genji is... I think he's kind of boring. And how desensitized to science fiction must I be to get bored with a cybernetic ninja? Well, I don't know how much anime each of you guys consume, but yeah, cyborg ninja is kind of a thing. And Overwatch doesn't really do anything past that with Genji. You got the son of a Japanese mob boss who was trained in ninjutsu because of course he was. He had a falling out with his brother resulting in a violent accident, and then, who's this mysterious robot attacking Hanzo on the anniversary of Genji's death? Why,
Yep, it's Genji.
It is Genji! What? Overwatch has its fair share of cliches.
I think that was supposed to be Patrick,
but
not Chris.
it usually has some kind of twist for each character. You got a time traveler who sounds like she should be on the cast of Mary Poppins, a cowboy with an updated sci-fi arsenal, a pro gamer turned mech pilot, a hamster turned mech pilot, and Mr. Freeze but adorable. And sure, some of these twists have been done to death before. Winston gives me some strong vibes of Gorilla Grodd and Beast from the X-Men. But with Genji, there is no twist. He's a cyborg, and he's a ninja, and that's really all there is. So why does he make the list? Well, a few reasons. One, Nefarious and 21 didn't count as cyborg, so I had some openings. But more importantly, I thought about what Genji is in the context of his own game. He may not be unique in the grand scheme of gaming, but in the Overwatch roster, he's extremely unique. An almost close-range based character in a first-person shooter who uses superior mobility to duck and weave around the bullets and insta-kills with his plasmatic dragon sword. He never stands still, but he certainly stands out. And with Overwatch having a lot to do with the tension between humans and Omnics, having a character smack dab in the middle presents some interesting story opportunities. Ones that the game doesn't really capitalize on. Reading the character description, it basically boils down to, he hated his body and questioned his humanity, but he got over it. But if you think about how Genji fights amongst these mechanical marvels and literal beasts, it only works because he's a cyborg. Only his robotic legs could make these jumps possible, but only his dedicated ninja training could lend such dexterity to a metal body. So yeah, there's enough to work with here, and hey, there's a sequel coming which might give us some more information.
It's out,
no
but
telling when that's coming out. It's almost like Blizzard announced
Overwatch
it early to distract us from something.
Perhaps.
Number 9. Unless they haven't played Overwatch in a long time.
Speaking of evil corporations...
Volcor?
Oh, man, that's awful. There's Nests from the King of Fighters series, a shadowy syndicate using the tournament to take over the world, while also running experiments to turn people into amazing fighting machines. We've talked about K-Dash, the uber edgelord, and Kula Diamond, the sweet little cryomancer, but I've never mentioned the third member of their crew, Maxima. His original name is unknown, but he used to be a soldier in the Canadian military until he found out that his brother-in-arms was killed as a result of Nests. So he traded in his normal life and went undercover to check out their labs. The best way to do this? Become a cyborg. This makes Maxima one of the only characters on this list to undergo cyberization willingly, and not as a result of some horrible accident. He might have went a little overboard though, replacing 80% of his body in the surgery. This includes enhanced strength, cannons in his arms, and a miniaturized nuclear reactor in place of his heart. This is all used to bolster his already impressive fighting style, which has its roots in pro wrestling but now incorporates more atomic blasts. Utilizing his new arsenal, Maxima rescued K-Dash and Kula from their lab rat prison, and now the three are an incredible team. And I gotta say, I like their dynamic a lot. Maxima's the dad of the group and can be pretty laid back, and it's usually his job to reel in K-Dash when his emo shtick goes too far. He's also a big eater, especially sweets, which is great because the extra glucose helps power the mechanical parts of his body. He reminds me a lot of Teen Titans Cyborg, actually. Big guy with a big heart and a big appetite. K-Dash would be Robin, technically in charge of the group, but in dire need of Maxima's guidance. So I guess that makes Kula Diamond a Frosty Starfire, maybe? Even the whole undercover thing reminds me of the Hive Academy arc, but now I'm just grasping at straws. Just goes to show that you can still be a reasonably happy person, even if you were technically made in a lab.
Again, willingly here. Pretty cool. Next.
A lot of cyborgs in fighting games. Guess they don't let you into Evo if you don't have a half-machine character, but this also means that I have to sift through a lot of complicated multiversal lore, but so be it. Back to BlazBlue. I don't know about you, but whenever I looked at this roster, Iron Tager always jumped out at me.
Hey guys,
big red skin, tiny useless glasses, and hands the size of horses. What's his story? Well, he wasn't always quite so big, but even before his operation, Tager was a powerful guy. One of the only people to stand a chance fighting the crazed criminal Azrael, in fact. But Azrael had plot armor and ripped Tager to shreds. Good thing Tager works for Sector 7, a shadowy organization with a great healthcare plan. I wonder if they're accepting applications.
Kona.
Tager was injected with demon cells, which would have
Thanks,
killed
Kone.
most people, but since he was already a BAMF, it just made him stronger and dyed his skin crimson. And hey, as long as we're screwing with his biology, let's put a bunch of weapons on him, like the Voltic Drive, a pair of magnetic
You're giving him
gauntlets,
cyborg parts,
and a
man. Include the
generator that
weapons.
makes eclipse fields,
Oh, hey,
perfect
Ruby.
for keeping pesky time travelers from interfering with your work. So yeah, take everything I said about Maxima, a big strong grappler with a heart of gold, multiply that by 3, and you got Tager. He's a gentle giant who would do anything for his superior officer Kokonoe, and though he could flatten someone like a pancake with his mitts or just tank their attacks until they die of exhaustion, Tager prefers to end fights quickly and humanely to prevent any permanent damage to his opponents. You ever hear of the War Factor? It's a trope from Star Trek. Basically, the guy you establish as the strongest on the team. They'll keep getting beat up by the villains to illustrate just how strong they are, so ironically, your supposed best fighter spends most of his time losing fights. Going through the lore, I was expecting Tager to get warped pretty hard. I mean, some of
Let
the
me guess,
antagonists
no?
in this series are ridiculous. But he actually keeps up pretty well. Even if his fists of steel have a maximum capacity, he keeps training those human muscles of his, so he keeps up with the power creep. Whether he's
Fair
decking
enough.
sorcerers in the face or crossing over with Ruby and Persona, Tager's built to last and bred to improve, no warranty needed.
I mean, considering he's hanging with Kokone? Yeah, Kokone. We'll go with that. Sorry. And these names sometimes. Anyway, considering she had to rebuild him, I guess he didn't want, Tager going out again and having to redo the whole thing. So, I guess Tager was just doing, solid for 2 since, spent so much effort, rebuilding him, might as well. Sorry. Moving on. Here, sneeze. Astral. Number 7.
Did you think I'd forget League of Legends? Well, I almost forgot Victor, actually. He was a last-minute inclusion. I don't know why I always forget him. He was even the newest champion released when I first started playing the game, but his weird playstyle made him an unpopular pick for a while, so I guess that's why he gets so overlooked.
So,
Lucky for
what changed?
Victor, he's all about reinventing himself. Runeterra is one of those everything exists kind of worlds, where the existence of magic also allows for some societies to have incredible futuristic technology, and still somehow stand toe-to-toe with the sword and sorcery type kingdoms. The 2 techiest regions are Piltover, a kind of steampunk fantasy land, and Zaun, home to a lot of science gone wrong scenarios due to non-existent safety regulations. But Victor always believed that the majority of lab mistakes were due to human error, not mechanical failure. Mankind is by
Sometimes
its nature
can be
flawed,
that,
after all,
yeah.
whereas science is pure and certain. Embracing this mindset, Victor led an illustrious career maximizing efficiency in Zaun's factories, won many accolades for improving safety, and he even built Blitzcrank, one of my favorite champions. His achievements would eventually win him a scholarship for the illustrious University of Piltover, where he met 2 men that would change his life forever. Dr. Stanwyck, who stole the credit for inventing Blitzcrank, screw that guy, and Jace, the hero of tomorrow. I've compared Jace and Victor to Captain Hammer and Dr. Horrible before, but you know who they really are? Reed Richards and Dr. Doom. Everything
much.
about Victor is a supervillain origin story. When Victor's radical ideas and constant headbutting with Jace got him expelled, Victor realized that he had fallen victim to the same illogical emotions that he accused all others of having. So he removed them, upgrading his body and brain until he was practically unrecognizable, attaching tools and weapons to his limbs for easier access,
Actually, it would be
and adding
Richards
an
and
extra
Von
hand on
Doom.
his shoulder because why the hell not? And while I've complained about the lore rewrites before, I'll give credit for one thing. Both Jace and Victor's backstories describe their final confrontation, with Jace stopping Victor's heinous plans to recreate an army of vicious golems, but in Victor's version, you totally see his point of view and why he sees Jace as the bad guy. Victor wasn't just making golems for the fun of it. There was a bunch of injured people from a previous incident, and transferring their minds to golems was the only way to save them. Even if they didn't ask for saving, to Victor it was better than death. He really is the hero of his own story, and after this last defeat, Victor dedicated himself to bringing about humanity's glorious evolution, whether humanity wanted it or not. Yeah, most of what I like about Victor is the flavor text. The gameplay isn't as important to this argument. It's just a bunch of cool tech, though there
cool
is
lore,
one
just
notable gimmick.
not
Victor's
that good
passive ability
gameplay.
has him start the game with an exclusive item, the prototype Hex Core. Just like all the other items, you can spend gold to upgrade it, and each upgrade buffs its AP and mana, and adding new features to one of his spells. Items are important no matter what champ you play, but with Victor, technology is built right in, literally and figuratively. You can chalk most of Victor's appeal to the writing, but of all the villains who just want to make men into machines, this is the most invested I've felt in one of them. So it's kinda sad that you can shut down his glorious revolution with Teemo and his blow darts. You just can't beat the classics.
Amen. For 6.
The tech doesn't have to be realistic to make a good cyborg. Just give me some reruns of Inspector Gadget and a bowl of Cocoa Puffs and I'm happy. Or better yet, how about the $6 million man, but he's made of musical instruments?
Oh, Big Band. Yeah, I think I remember this guy. Wasn't he just the one that missed out on
That's
the,
right. Big Band's making an encore.
Cool.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. Ben Birdland is a new cop in town who finds out that law enforcement isn't what it's cracked up to be. More specifically, he falls in with some crooked cops who accepts bribes from mobsters. Ben won't play ball, so the other cops teach him a lesson that lands him in an iron lung. Luckily, Dr. Avian of the Anti-Skullgirl Labs is in dire need of new agents and offers to build Ben a spiffy new body in exchange for his services as an agent. So why is the new body made of a high school music class? Because that's just the sort of game Skullgirls is. I could replay my big band section from the top 10 Weapon Masters video I made years ago, but suffice to say, it's amazing how many instruments they packed into his moveset. He's like a sentinel designed by John Philip Sousa. And that's pretty much how he plays. He's large, in charge, and hits like a barge. On top of that, I just love this dude's personality. He's so chill and laid back, kind of like Maxima, I guess, but with a jazzy coolness on top. He's happy to be fighting for a cause he believes in, and serves as a parental figure for partners like Painwheel and Peacock, who now that I think about it are also cyborgs, but I'm sticking with Big Band for the most quintessential. By the time the plot starts, Marie will be the third iteration of the Skullgirl he's helped take down, so the dude's put in his time. The guys tell him that his parts are due for an upgrade, but I think he likes the vintage feel. They'd probably mess it up if they tried to improve him, add a synthesizer, auto-tuning. No thanks, mate, just let the old cat do his thing.
Hey, it works, right?
I won't hesitate to lay the hammer down on any clown that comes around.
Damn. Well, sounds like
We've
Cyborg.
got plenty of cyborg ninjas. We need more cyborg knights. That's how I always saw Fulgor.
Oh, hi,
anyway.
Fulgor.
I mean, it's faint, but his head always reminded me of a knight's helmet with a little plume on the back.
Man, I think that was like
maybe
the
that's
idea.
a stretch,
You know,
but Fulgor is still a great
bringing
cyborg.
the
Or should I
trust.
say, Fulgor is 3 great cyborgs. Each Killer Instinct has featured a different one, made to improve on the last. Developed by Ultratech, the Fulgor Mark I was entered into the Killer Instinct tournament as a test run. If he wins, they proceed to mass-produce them, the original Fulgor unit being retired for all time in a museum, with only robot patrons left to visit him. Kind of a bleak victory, isn't it?
Ouch.
Killer Instinct 2, however, insists that the Mark I was killed by Jago, so the Fulgor Mark II is
thought it was
deployed to
TJ
seek
combo,
revenge,
right?
and then Ultratech will make the robotic army. Yeah, the first 2 games use the terms cyborg and robot almost interchangeably, but in the second wave of characters for the newest Killer Instinct, we get a retcon and a third iteration of Fulgor, which we know for sure is part human. In fact, he's Eagle, the brother of Chief Thunder, and for the first time, he's starting to question his allegiance to Ultratech. Each design has changed little in the grand scheme of things, keeping the heavy armor and the plasma-emitting blades, but while the older games offer Fulgor as a kind of beginner Shoto character, the new Killer Instinct gives Fulgor a new gimmick, a nuclear reactor that charges up over time to unleash his more devastating attacks. Glad to say they improved on the original blueprints. Just because Fulgor has more feelings now, that doesn't make him any less dangerous. Though I did always wonder why Ultratech was so hell-bent on mass-producing cyborgs instead of just robots. That cannot be the most efficient option, can it? Is it because robot AI isn't advanced enough to make in-the-moment tactical decisions like humans? Because Arya is purely artificial and she does just fine. No, I don't think it's that they're born human. It's that they're born warriors. You can write scripts and run simulations all day, but Arya's never been able to manufacture that authentic, get the title card ready, killer instinct.
Yep, we said it!
Good to know that the human race will never be truly obsolete, just as long as we keep killing people. Thanks, Fulgor.
That or just keep up with skills. Dang. Bravo! That'd be sad. Jeez. And number 4?
Supreme victory.
I might get my
I'm
gamer
full.
card taken away if I don't mention Deus Ex. You know, the game about cyborgs. If I played the
Okay.
series more, maybe I'd rank this character higher, but right out of the gate, I have a choice to make. Do I go with JC Denton from the first game, the guy from Invisible War that fans assure me doesn't exist, or Adam Jensen from the more recent Human Revolution and Mankind Divided? Well, 2 games versus 1, and Jensen is giving me way more footage to work with, so Jensen it is. And it's fitting, because in a way, Jensen's the genesis of cyborgs in this continuity. Pro literary analysis tip. If a character's name is Adam, they're probably the first of something. This Adam was experimented on as a kid, which removed his body's natural intolerance to artificial augments that usually make cyberification so difficult. He was young enough that he's forgotten all about it, but his employer Seraph Industries remembers all too well. And after what I'm sure was a totally coincidental attack fatally injuring Jensen, Seraph turns Jensen into the
kill
most
him wife, I
advanced
think.
experimental RoboCop ever made. Should have read the fine print on that health plan, Jensen.
Oops.
But on the flip side, these mods are freaking nuts. He's got blades that shoot out of his wrists, he can hack anything he sees like freaking Jarvis, sweats a bulletproof shield, and the Fils de Resistance retractable sunglasses. I love that they found it necessary to implant those, and his improved eyesight lets him wear those glasses at night. It does run into the Phantom Menace problem of, hey, why do people in the prequels have more developed technology than the originals? But longtime fans might appreciate seeing how the world's reliance on augments got started, and makes for a pretty kick-ass progression system. Cool factor aside, it's interesting to watch Jensen grapple with his new life in a body he never asked for.
I never asked for this.
Not to mention how it affects his
one
relationships.
never does.
A neat detail, Jensen wears the shades pretty much all of the time, only retracting them when talking to someone he trusts. Unfortunately, you shouldn't trust anyone in Deus Ex. This is a series centered around conspiracy and paranoia, where everything is connected by twine on a cork board. The cyberification feeds into that sense of paranoia. If Jensen and all of humanity are plugging into the products of these corporations, they're by extension more connected with the unknowable systems surrounding them. They become literal tools of society. In Human Revolution, augments become an albeit nightmare, as the wealthy upper class are the only ones who can afford to make themselves objectively better. Then in Mankind Divided, distrust in augments leads to the subjugation of all cyborgs, which is a weird racism allegory to go with since they were the cream of the crop in the last game, but hey, whatever. The
Oopsie.
metaphors mix like blood and nanobots, and soon you won't know what to believe. And poor Jensen is caught in the middle of all of it. Seriously, he never asked for this. Even if it did include cool shades.
Yep. Yeah, I can't blame him. I'd probably be pissed too. Though, I'm not too sure about what would happen, like, nowadays. Since, you know, we know how these stories usually go. You oppress one race, you know, gonna lead to the end of the world if they're not careful. Again, it really depends, since, you know, can't say for certain. What do you guys think? Opinions? What would you do? Anyway, moving along. Final 3, here we go. First up.
So what, just because cyborgs were used to take over one universe, now you're afraid of all of them? There's plenty of gentle, docile Borgs out there. Just look at...
You were saying?
Okay, bad example. Yeah, Bioshock's not the best place
the
to
Big
look
Daddy.
for science gone wrong. Rapture was founded to escape the shackles of human ethics, and escape it did. The Big Daddies are the stuff of nightmares. Humans being gene-spliced, psychologically conditioned, and grafted into old-timey diving suits, carrying rivet guns and rusty excavation drills. Originally made for maintaining the unique nautical architecture, the
Yoink.
Daddies were repurposed when Andrew Ryan noticed a shortage of Atom. No, not that Atom.
Not that one.
This is a substance harvested
Basically
from sea
that.
slugs that grants morphogenic powers. But anyway, the Little Sisters were deployed to harvest Atom from the scattered bodies of dead splicers, and the Big Daddies were deputized to escort them safely around the dangerous city streets. To achieve this relationship, the Daddies had to be reconditioned to bond with the Little Sisters, and this is where the humanity of the not-so-gentle giants shines through. You'll generally see these two in pairs, the sisters harvesting Atom and the Daddies standing guard. Generally, they'll leave you alone, but if you so much as stand close to the little girl, well,
Run!
you just woke Daddy. Even with the specially tailored ammunition, you'll have trouble taking these Leviathans down on harder difficulties. Manage to kill a daddy, and you're rewarded with the heartbreaking cry of his daughter and the chance to save and or harvest her. Should you collect all of the little sisters in an area, you can still find big daddies lumbering around looking for their kids, and that frustrated moan when they don't answer the call gets me every time. Now, normally I try to pick a specific character for these lists, but I'm willing to give this slot to the very concept of the Big Daddy itself, though there's some special merit examples out there. Take Project Delta from Bioshock 2, though I'm actually not sure if he and the other Alpha Daddies are cyborgs. Are they grafted in there, or are they just wearing suits? I also want to mention Songbird, a winged equivalent in the Colombian reality that watched over Elizabeth in Bioshock Infinite, but I like the old bouncer design best. So, maybe give the trophy to the one they put in PlayStation All-Stars? Oh, no. Give it to the one from Burial at Sea, the famous one that kills Su Chong. Yeah, that one's a legend. All in all, the Big Daddy might best be described by this quote from Jeremiah Fink, who says, "They illuminate a merger of machine and man that is somehow the lesser, yet the greater of both parties." How can you say no to a pitch like that?
Fair? Again, depends how you see it. So creepy as hell.
You know I'm gonna need a cyborg from Mortal Kombat, but oh, which one?
Sector?
I know my favorite character to
Frost?
ever be a cyborg is Sub-Zero, but he's not my favorite
Yeah,
when
only
he's
one
a
game.
cyborg. Does that make sense? Actually, I remember how mad people were at Cyber Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat 9, but if you've been with the series for a while, it kinda makes sense. See, Mortal Kombat 9 was a reboot, the timeline being canonically reset by Raiden. In the old timeline, Sub-Zero's clan, the Lin Kuei, decided to update their ways and start turning their ninjas into cyborg ninjas. And yeah, I know I made a huge fuss about cyborg ninjas with Genji, but at least these ones aren't anime sword wielders. You have Sector with his rockets and flamethrower,
And
Cyrax
teleport.
with his bombs and nets, and Sub-Zero's old friend Smoke, who was robotized against his will. And these three pursued Sub-Zero
Triborg,
endlessly so they
right?
could modify him
You know,
and
11?
complete the set. Again, that's all old timeline stuff. So in the new timeline, they flipped the script by keeping Smoke normal and turning Sub-Zero into a cyborg. I mean, I don't love it, but at least there was a precedent for it in the series, and it's not something that they decided to do randomly. Plus, that game still had normal Sub-Zero playable. And double plus, Sub-Zero got better. Or
Became
rather,
human
he
again.
had his body magically restored by Shinnok. I wouldn't worry about it too much. So why am I
wasn't he
telling
a
you all
remnant?
this?
I think-
Because the Lin Kuei had one last trick up their sleeve, and it was finally unleashed in Mortal Kombat X. Meet
Ten.
Triborg.
There we go.
Who are you? Ten, founder of the Kunin clan. You are clearly defective.
With the combined DNA, experience, and weaponry of all previous Borgs, Triborg is incredibly versatile. A great package deal, too, because his variations are so different, it's like buying 3 characters in one DLC slot. Oh, did I say 3? I forgot. Cyber Sub-Zero's in there, too. So his name doesn't even make sense anymore. He's a Quad Borg? Anyway, it's all about how zony you want to be. Do you want Sector for his long-range poke, Cyrax for placing explosives, Smoke for anti-zoning, or Sub-Zero for icy power-ups? Whatever you want, he's got you covered. Though I have to wonder whose body is in there. I mean, Sub-Zero got a new body, and Smoke was never a cyborg in this timeline. Were Sector and Cyrax spliced together somehow, or is Triborg just another guy under all that machinery, with a bunch of powers and martial arts downloaded into his brain? Well, it's not important. What's important is an entire legacy of half-mechanical murderers are consolidated into one dude. Sorry, Fulgore, but Mortal Kombat has a better combo here.
Finish her.
And on to this part, look. 1, 2, and 3. Kill blows. Damn. Surprised they never brought him back.
Wins. Fatality.
Guess they just not ready for the cyborgs. And for number 1?
In typical Green Scorpion fashion, my number 1 spot goes to a somewhat obvious choice. Even if I'm aligned the overused cyborg ninja archetype at the beginning of the video, I have to admit that there's a good reason why it's so overused. Cyborg ninjas are cool. A futuristic robot body with a feudal Japanese sensibility. It's like a French fry dipped in a milkshake, a perfect blend of contrasting flavors. And no one has leaned harder on this trope than our old pal Hideo Kojima. Kyle Schneider from the
Metal
original
Gear.
Metal Gear, Gray Fox in MGS1, Olga Gerlukovich in MGS2,
That
and
count?
premiering in that same game,
Raiden.
Congratulations, you little punk.
Raiden, Raiden, choose your own, right?
It wouldn't be until Metal Gear Solid 4 that Raiden gained true cyborg status, but his first appearance certainly left an impression, and not in all the best ways. With Kojima's recent art house project Death Stranding mystifying us today, it can be easy to forget how much of a mind freak Metal Gear Solid 2 was 18 years ago. Nothing in the advertising even hinted at Raiden's existence, let alone that he'd be usurping fan-favorite Solid Snake as the protagonist for 90% of the game. And we were livid.
Fools.
Screw this pretty boy with his weeb sword techniques and
We
his
want our
incessant
Snake.
whining and his "I've trained in over 300 VR simulators" every 2 minutes. But in retrospect, I actually kind of love Raiden in this game. His reactions to the increasingly weird third act are just so genuine and confused.
Raiden, something happened to me last Thursday when I was driving home. I had a couple of miles to go. I looked up and saw a glowing orange object in the sky, to the east. It was moving very irregularly. Suddenly, there was intense light all around me, and when I came to, I was home. What do you think happened to me?
But the fandom's general feelings
like
towards
what?
Raiden were strongly negative, and from then on, Raiden became the Leonardo DiCaprio of video game characters. He was in a critically acclaimed game, he did a good job, but everyone hated him for it. So Konami
blame
proceeded
the
to
story.
beat the ever-loving shit out of this character until we all liked him again. In Metal Gear Solid
They forced
3,
it.
Snake gets to beat up a look-alike Raiden and stuff him in a closet, but in Metal Gear Solid 4, Raiden's back and he's not been doing too well. He broke up with his girlfriend, fell back into mercenary work, and oh yeah, lost 90% of his freaking body. Seriously, he's got his skull, his spine, and that's about it. He doesn't even
Really?
have his own lower jaw anymore. It's kind of terrifying. He's an awesome sword fighter now, taking on hordes of geckos and an unkillable vampire man, but the game never misses an opportunity to tear him to shreds, run him through his own sword, chop off his limbs, and by the end, he's carrying his sword with his teeth. Now, I'm not one to praise a character just because they've suffered. You can have a tragic backstory and still be a bore. But with Raiden, well, I can't help but admire his Black Knight levels of perseverance. And I know it's to save
Tis
the world
but
from
the
the
scratch.
influence of the Patriots and get revenge for everything he's been through. Dude's got nothing left. But in a meta sense, it kind of feels like he's doing it for us. It's like, do you like me now, fanbase? Is this enough for you? Finally, after he's been through 3 lifetimes of pain, the game has pity on him, restores his body to a more human-looking form, and lets him live out a peaceful life with
Yeah,
Rose.
wait till Revengeance.
And then in Metal Gear Rising, they rip him apart again! This makes more sense, though, when you remember Rising was originally supposed to take place before Metal Gear Solid 4, explaining how he got his cyborg body and rescued Sonny Gerlukovich. But eventually Platinum decided to retool the game as a quasi-canonical sequel, and that meant undoing his happy ending. It's brutal, but so is Raiden, and seeing him go from the most hated character in the franchise to one of the top gaming badasses of all time, well, it's not just his body that was replaced. The character itself was rebuilt, practically from scratch, stronger, faster, more marketable, without ever losing that glimmer of goodwill that made him such a plucky hero. I'm the Green Scorpion, and if there's one takeaway
And
here,
the memes.
it's that people
Don't forget the
can
memes.
change. Sure, you could just replace someone for a better model, but there's no replacement for experience. Every original scrap of this man is gone, save for his brain and his right eye, but he's still got the same old heart. Metaphorically speaking, his literal heart is probably in a landfill by now.
Oof.
Anyway, thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in
Let's
next time.
dance.
Trust me, it's a deal you can't refuse.
And that's the crime boss one, if memory serves. But yeah, let's be real. We think Raiden, yeah, definitely the memes, you know, I'm strong. That and the whole, this isn't my sword. Come on, you know you love them. Anyway, they're the Cyborgs with Raiden taking the top spot, which, honestly, with what he's been through, deserved. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Till next time, like, subscribe for more. See ya.